The day I decrypted the files proving Pastor Evans had been operating a 12-year elder fraud pipeline from his parsonage room was the same day I understood my father signed away his life's work while believing he was building a kingdom. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I trust you have done that. Now, let's begin. My name is Mary Okafor. 6 weeks ago, I was a 35-year-old operations analyst with a structured life in suburban Detroit. Spreadsheets for everything. Sunday volunteer shifts as church treasurer's assistant and weekend visits to care for my widowed father. Today I'm telling you how Pastor Jonathan Evans, the man who baptized me with a laugh when I splashed him at the font, turned my father's deathbed into a signing ceremony while preaching about eternal legacy. I need you to understand something before I continue. Pastor Evans wasn't the stereotype you're imagining. No megachurch, no designer suits, no stadium rallies. He drove a cranky Corolla with 140,000 miles on it. He wore shoes with worn-down heels. He showed up at hospital rooms at 3:00 in the morning to pray with families and never asked for recognition. He knew the names of widows and their dogs. He remembered which hymns brought people to tears. When my mother passed 8 years ago, he sat beside my father for hours, just sitting, not performing. I trusted him. My father trusted him completely. That trust is what made the theft invisible. My father, David Okafor, spent 30 years making small deposits into municipal bonds, $200 here, $500 there, the discipline of a man who'd survived scarcity and refused to forget it. He built a deferred compensation account through 3 decades at the water department. He paid off the family home in 15 years and kept every receipt in labeled envelopes. $10.6 million, accumulated in silence and thrift. He used to tell me, measure twice, cut once, and never sign what you don't understand. But when pancreatic cancer ravaged his body, when morphine turned his words to fog, when the room smelled of disinfectant and surrender, Pastor Evans convinced him to revise his will. $10.6 million to the Kingdom Growth Legacy Fund. Nothing to his daughter. Nothing to cover the medical debts he'd whispered about in his lucid hours. God's vision requires sacrifice, Evans said gently at the funeral, standing over the casket of a man who'd been extracted like a quarterly earnings target. 3 days later, an injunction arrived. Asset preservation, the paperwork said. I was locked out of my childhood home. I slept on my friend Ada's couch and spent my nights toggling between rage and a kind of airless disbelief. How does a signature erase 30 years of promises? How does competency get certified when morphine dosages are climbing? So one cold February evening, armed with the maintenance keys my Uncle Nonso had kept from his years on the church grounds, I went back to collect what I told myself were innocent loan ledgers from the treasurer's files. I expected filing cabinets and donation envelopes. Instead, I found a wardrobe in Pastor Evans's private room, sitting 2 centimeters off the wall. Floorboards beneath it scuffed from repeated movement. Behind a false panel, a slim safe and a leather ledger embossed, continuity plan. Inside that safe, opened with Evans's wedding date and his favorite Bible verse numbers, guessed from the plaque in his office, I found the names of 17 elderly congregants, color-coded like a sales pipeline. Green for initial approach, amber for clinic aligned, red for documents executed. $10.6 million wasn't an inheritance redirected. It was line item 12 in a 12-year harvest. My father's file was right there, tab labeled Okafor David Q4 Readiness. They had clinic appointment logs cross-referenced with Deacon Paul's transport ministry calendar. They had morphine dosage schedules matched to decision windows. They had a pre-written eulogy template with 3 optional anecdotes, the same stories Evans told at my father's funeral, word for word, that he'd used for 2 other families. And in the margins next to my father's name, in Evans's handwriting, ready. But here's what Pastor Jonathan Evans didn't know about Mary Okafor. Before I reconciled church donation spreadsheets, before I color-coded volunteer schedules, I spent 7 years as an operations analyst auditing vendor compliance and flagging procurement fraud for a Fortune 500 logistics company. I knew how to document evidence chains. I knew how to timestamp backups and distribute them across secure cloud servers. I knew how to build a case that couldn't be threatened, buried, or prayed away. So while Pastor Evans slept in his modest parsonage, confident that piety was armor and that grief made people compliant, I sat in my friend Ada's apartment, uploading 20 gigabytes of evidence to servers in 3 states. The leather ledger, photographed page by page. The encrypted USB drive labeled Sheaves, cracked with his own passwords, revealing spreadsheets titled Distributions External. Money flowing from the legacy fund into shell nonprofits managed by his brother-in-law's consulting firm, drained in 6-month cycles through initiative advances and fees. A draft report for a national donors forum, bragging about 18 planned giving wins in 36 months, complete with dates, dollar amounts, and a process map. Audio wouldn't have mattered. The documents spoke in a language accountants and prosecutors both understood. The flash drive in my pocket held everything, but more importantly, the State Attorney General's fraud unit already had copies, uploaded 30 minutes before I made the call, checksums attached, metadata intact, sent from Ada's laptop using a VPN and a timestamp service that made deletion impossible. There was a certain justice in that, using the tools of transparency to expose a man who'd weaponized trust. When I returned to the parsonage during Thursday choir practice, Ada filming and Uncle Nonso standing witness, I laid the ledger and the notebook on Evans's bedspread and called him on speaker. "Pastor," I said, "I found your notes on my father's soul." When those police sirens started cutting through the hymn rehearsal downstairs, when Pastor Evans stepped into his own room and saw the hidden panel slid open and the continuity plan exposed under the ceiling light. When Pastor Evans stepped into his own room and saw the hidden panel slid open and the continuity plan exposed under the ceiling light, I watched him try to become small. But we need to go back 6 weeks. Back to the probate office where this started, where I first heard the number $10.6 million and watched a man I'd trusted all my life check the wall clock like he was waiting for a meeting to end. The parsonage hallway smelled like lemon polish and old carpet. Uncle Nonso's maintenance keys still fit the side entrance. 20 years of volunteer work bought that kind of access, and the Thursday choir practice downstairs gave us noise cover and a predictable timeline. 40 minutes, maybe 50, if they ran the Easter cantata section twice. I told myself I was retrieving loan ledgers for the treasurer's quarterly reconciliation. Ada called it what it was, verification. If Evans kept official records clean, he'd need a second system. Frauds always do. The file room was locked, the office was bare, but his private room, third door on the right, the one with the better tea and the window overlooking the cemetery, felt heavier when I stepped inside. Uncle Nonso stayed at the threshold, a silent anchor. I noticed the wardrobe first. It sat 2 centimeters off the wall. The floorboards beneath showed scuff marks, parallel grooves from repeated movement. I pulled the frame gently. Behind it, a false panel. Behind that, a slim safe and a narrow shelf holding a leather ledger embossed in gold. Continuity plan. "Try the plaque numbers," I whispered. Uncle Nonso read them off Evans's office scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, plus the wedding photo date visible on his desk downstairs. The safe clicked. Inside, the ledger, an encrypted USB labelled Sheaves, and a spiral notebook with quarters written across the top, like sales targets. I photographed each page with steady hands. The ledger listed 17 names, ages 70 and older, color-coded. Green for initial approach, amber for clinic aligned, red for documents executed. Margin notes referenced sermon dates, legacy giving series week 3, cross-matched to notarization spikes. The USB index showed folders, distributions external, comfort notes, leadership summit. I opened the comfort notes folder. Inside, a eulogy template with bracketed placeholders. Name. Favorite hymn. Generous act example. Toptum. Titan sum. I recognized the sentences, word for word, my father's funeral, 2 others from the church newsletter. Then I found his page. Okafor David Q4 readiness, clinic dates, morphine schedules, and in the margin, circled, ready. I didn't combust. I catalogued. You timed his soul, I whispered. Ada's apartment became a war room. 3 laptops, 2 monitors, coffee going cold in mismatched mugs, sticky notes mapping timelines across her living room wall like a conspiracy board, except the conspiracy was real and documented in Excel. The sheaves USB unlocked with the same code, wedding date, verse numbers. Inside, folders labeled distributions. External revealed spreadsheets tracking money from the Kingdom Growth Legacy Fund into Shell Nonprofits, Hope Initiatives LLC, Stewardship Partners Group, Legacy Advancement Consulting. All 3 shared the same registered address. All 3 tied back to a consulting firm managed by Marcus Phillips, Evans's brother-in-law. I graphed the cash burn. Bequests drained within 6 months through initiative advances and administrative consulting fees, not crude theft, structural skimming with non-profit gloss, and legal formatting. Ada cross-referenced the church newsletter. Obituary spikes followed sermon series on leaving a legacy by an average of 11 weeks. I overlaid Deacon Paul's transport ministry calendar, printed months ago for treasurer records, with Graceview Palliative Clinic appointments. Decision windows aligned with morphine dosage increases. Every competency letter signed by the same physician, Dr. Raymond Howell. Then I found the draft report buried in a subfolder. National Donors Forum, presentation deck. Evans bragging to his peers. 18 planned giving wins in 36 months. Names, dates, amounts, process maps. Damning. Admissible. I believed it was enough. I filed a preliminary complaint. The clerk rejected it within 48 hours. Insufficient particularity. The injunction expanded. The church board issued a statement calling me emotionally compromised by grief. Dr. Howell published a letter in the local paper defending Graceview's rigorous competency standards. My lawyer warned me the moral high ground doesn't win in probate court. I sat on Ada's couch, staring at spreadsheets that proved everything and changed nothing. The math is right, I said, but piety is a moat. Uncle Nonso set down his mug. Light needs a window. I printed everything. Ledger photos, spreadsheets, the donors forum deck, slid each page into transparent evidence sleeves, then placed the continuity plan notebook on top. Then we'll make a window. Thursday choir practice started at 7. By 7:15 we were upstairs in Evans's room. Ada positioned herself by the window, phone recording. Uncle Nonso stood near the door, solid and silent. I laid the items across the bedspread like evidence at trial, the leather ledger, the USB drive, the pipeline notebook, the eulogy template. 30 minutes earlier, Ada had uploaded the complete digital packet to the State Attorney General's fraud unit. Time-stamped, check summed, irreversible. I dialed Evans on speaker. He answered on the second ring. "Pastor," I said, my voice steady. "I found your notes on my father's soul." "Mary?" Confusion, then concern. "Where are you?" "Your room. Come upstairs." He arrived within 2 minutes, breathless. He stopped in the doorway when he saw the bedspread. I read from the ledger, clinical and calm. David Okafor, Graceview appointment, February 14th. Morphine increase logged February 16th. Notarization February 19th. Deacon Paul, witness. Competency letter Dr. Howell, same day. I flipped to the spreadsheet printout. Distribution to Legacy Advancement Consulting, March 8th. Administrative fees, 62%. Initiative advance, 31%. Remaining balance. Evans reached for the notebook. I slid it into a clear evidence envelope. Ada's camera caught his hand mid-air. I picked up his own script from the Leadership Summit folder. "Stewardship is trust," I read aloud. "Your words, Pastor." I held up the donors' forum draft. 18 planned giving wins. My father is number 12. The sirens cut through the hymn rehearsal downstairs. Evans straightened, summoning pastoral gravity. "Mary, let's not scandalize the church." I pulled the wardrobe away from the wall. The false panel slid open. "The room is the scandal." Officers stepped into the doorway. I handed them the evidence sleeves and a printed log of upload timestamps. Evans wasn't cuffed, policy, but his mask cracked. As they escorted him downstairs, Deacon Paul appeared in the hallway, keys trembling in his hand. "I drove your father that day," he whispered. He was crying. At the preliminary hearing, Evans's counsel argued benevolent intent. These were competent, willing donors fulfilling their faith commitments. The Attorney General amended the complaint to pattern and practice fraud. My packet became Exhibits A through M, ledger cross-references, distribution spreadsheets, the eulogy template, the donors' forum draft with 18 names and a process map. Dr. Howell from Graceview cut a deal. He confirmed dosage timing protocols and pre-filled competency letters. 2 board members who'd received compassion stipends suddenly remembered email threads and undisclosed payments. The ruling was surgical. Gift deed voided for undue influence. Will amendment struck. Constructive trust imposed on already distributed funds. The legacy fund placed under receivership. Evans barred from managing charitable assets. The court ordered a public accounting to notify other families. Reporters wanted sound bites. They wanted me to condemn faith itself, to turn grief into spectacle. I refused. "My father believed in accountability, not vengeance," I said. "There's a difference." I moved home. Above the mantel, I framed his words in simple black ink. Measure twice, cut once, and never sign what you don't understand. With the restitution, I launched the Measure Twice Foundation. Independent estate planning clinics for elders. No sermons attached, no percentages skimmed. Only clear counsel and signatures that mean what they say. Sunday morning light fills the living room now. I sit at the desk I've placed where the old credenza stood and reconcile my father's accounts one final time. The numbers align. The house is quiet. I close the binder, then open the window. At church, a different church. One that counts its ushers' envelopes in public view, I still sing. And yes, I still count. Stewardship, after all, is trust and proof.